Hello everyone and welcome to Cinderful Gaming. I hope you're all doing well, I hope you're all staying safe, and most of all, I hope you're all fighting that war against the Grey. Today's video, we're going to be doing a start collecting box army video. Now, this video is mostly a bit of fun, but we're also going to see if we can collect an army of this particular faction we're going to look at in the video using only start collecting boxes. We're going to try and build an army entirely out of them. There's multiple reasons why you may want to do this. First of all, this is going to be a cheap way to get into the army and get the basis and core of a lot of units. You can always expand from this initial list later on. A start collecting box generally gives you a couple of different units to work with, and you can sort of use them in different ways within that start collecting box to really get the most out of it. You can find extra instructions for the units that are, I guess, the opposite builds than are what are in the start collecting box, as the start collecting box generally comes with only instructions for the models on the picture on the front. It won't come with the alternate build instructions, but you can find them either on Reddit, where there's fantastic posts who get some other start collecting box instructions and just model instruction for Games Workshop in general, or indeed message Games Workshop for the instructions yourself. Today we're going to look at Daughters of Khaine. We're going to look at their start collecting box, and we're going to try and make an army using only the start collecting box from the army. Now the army, to start with, at the end we've used 4 start collecting boxes to create the army, so that's what you're going to need to be able to build this army and get this as a basis. But what are we getting with Daughters of Khaine? So for starters, we're getting an army that heavily focuses on applying buffs to its units and making these Death Stars in a turn. You'll have buffs coming from prayers and other sources giving you rerolls to hit, in particular instances from, say, your Allegiance abilities, then getting extra damage and some Ren from your spells, your priests doing extra things to give you exploding 6s and other bonuses like that. This army really works well together as bringing a whole bunch of bonuses, sticking them on one unit and sending in that Death Star to do the damage. This does of course mean you have both solid combat and solid range damage units as well. You've got access to both of those in the army, and you can really utilize these different buffs on those units to make the most out of them. You can even, with some of these buffs, turn ranged units into decent combat units, given the amount of buffs you can stack on here and really the damage you can start to look to put through with those ranged units in combat. You've also got a decent access to solid mortal wounds. This is mostly due to what is in the start collecting box, the Melusi, or the Snake Ladies as people would call them. They are mortal wound heavy. You've got mortal wounds at range and mortal wounds in combat available to you with these particular models. Now, with that said, let's talk about the models and let's talk about what exactly comes inside this box set and how we can use it on the table. And so for starters, we have the Cauldron of Blood kit. Now this is a really interesting kit. This is essentially the Daughters of Khaine hero kit. So the Cauldron of Blood kit has the following options: Cauldron of Blood with Hag Queen, Cauldron of Blood with Slaughter Queen, Blood Rack Shrine, Blood Rack Medusa, Hag Queen, Slaughter Queen, and the Avatar of Khaine. How this model works though, so you will either put a Cauldron of Blood or a Blood Rack Shrine together, and this will either, if it's the Cauldron of Blood, have either the Hag Queen or Slaughter Queen atop it, and if it's the Blood Rack Shrine, it will have the Blood Rack Medusa atop it. Now, if it is also the Cauldron of Blood, it will also have the Avatar you can see there situated at the back. If you choose to build the Cauldron of Blood, you will get the one of 2 heroes that you do not build out of the Hag Queen and Slaughter Queen on foot as well as getting the Blood Rack Medusa on foot as well. In the case of building a Blood Rack Shrine, you will indeed get both the Daughters of Khaine Witch Elf heroes, the Slaughter Queen and the Hag Queen, and you'll also get the Avatar on foot as well. So you get a great variety of models with this singular kit. You pretty much get all your heroes. You get a cool Behemoth as well in the Avatar of Khaine, which is interesting to use. But definitely you've got a lot of options here with this entire kit. You can really go to town. You'll never paint this kit the same twice. You can have 3 different models. It's really awesome. Next up, we have the Blood Sisters and Blood Stalkers. These are the Snake Ladies, the combat variation, and the range variation. So let's talk about what all these units give us. So for starters, the Cauldron of Blood on the Hag Queen and the Hag Queen in general. So the Cauldron of Blood, first of all, they put out an aura of +1 safety units around them with their Shield of Blood. And you then either choose to have the Hag Queen or Slaughter Queen. Now the Hag Queen and Slaughter Queen on foot don't get the Cauldron of Blood benefits, but they do get the same rules as the Hag Queen and Slaughter Queen that is atop it. So they have some decent combat potential with the prayers. They can actually boost themselves up to be decent little fighty characters. But really where the Hag Queen comes into it is her Witch Brew. She can give rerolls to wound off onto units of Witch Elves nearby on a particular roll. Depending on how your Blood Rights table is going, you can get bonuses to this. And the Slaughter Queen can use command abilities to allow you to activate and do a whole bunch of other janky shenanigans with the army. Then we've got the Bloodrack Shrine and the Bloodrack Medusa. First of all, they've got a ranged attack with their Death Stare, where they roll a bunch of dice equal to the amount of models in range of their stare, and they do mortal wounds to them. This can be really great. It actually is a shooting attack, so it works on Unleash Hell. Really great on that large base of the Bloodrack Shrine. I think they're incredibly underrated as a model in the army. Can be really, really great on counter attacks. And the Bloodrack Medusa herself is a wizard. Unlike the Hag Queen and Slaughter Queen, which are priests, the Bloodrack Medusa is a wizard, so she gets access to a bunch of cool spells. And so having these two different models in the army gives you access to both prayers and spells, something Daughters of Khaine get where not a lot of other armies really do. Not a lot of armies get access to both prayers and spells, and Daughters of Khaine do. And so the last piece is the Avatar of Khaine. Now you get him and all his attacks if he is atop the Cauldron of Blood, but also he can be an inanimate statue at the start of the game, but actually wakes up during the game and will start to move around. And your priest can actually activate him earlier if they so wish to. There's ways you can make him activate earlier by changing your blood rights with particular sub-factions like Hagnar, but he's pretty decently choppy. He can do a decent amount of damage at some high rend. He's a nice little model to have hanging around. Lastly, we've got the Blood Sisters and the Blood Stalkers. These are pretty simple. They have mortal wounds. So these are much more elite than the Witch Elf side of the army, and you're going to have a lot less of them on the table. However, you're going to get access to mortal wounds, which is really, really cool. You're going to get, obviously, combat and ranged mortal wounds. This is really what these units do. You're just going to get those mortal wounds out of them. They're going to be a little bit harder to kill in some instances if they can get off with some of the different combinations you can do to defensive buffs with Daughters of Khaine as well. You really have a unit that not only does a lot of damage and can push out those mortal wounds, but can also survive some incoming attacks back at them. And so here we have a little sample army list for you all. So we're going to be playing in the Temple of Hagnar. This has got a couple of cool abilities. First of all, it allows anyone near our general, thanks to the Devoted Disciples command trait, to get their Fanatical Faith roll, which is their ward save roll that the Daughters of Khaine get, on a 5-up rather than a 6-up. This is incredibly powerful and the main reason you're going to take Hagnar. It's going to allow you just to keep your units in the fight longer. Now we've gone for the grand strategy Pillars of Belief because we've got quite a few really tough priests in here. We've got the Slaughter Queen and Hag Queen, both on Cauldron of Blood, and then another Hag Queen on foot. We'll talk about them in a second. It's just going to be a good one for us. You could definitely go with Prior Sorcery. We've got a couple of tough sorcerers here as well. But our general is going to be a Bloodrack Shrine. Now the reason this needs to be our general is because, of course, with the Start Collecting Box, we're only getting access to Melusai units, so we're going to have to need a Melusai general. And so she's going to have Devoted Disciples and the Orphery, which actually gives her some extra fighting potential with her weapon. And so we're going to put the Universal Spell Flaming Weapon on her as well, giving her some even more damage on that weapon. Potentially could be really nasty with some of her attacks. We're then going to have another Bloodrack Shrine who's going to have the spell Mind Razor, which is a fantastic spell. This is going to be buffing our big unit of Blood Sisters in the army. The big reason for this is Mind Razor can give some extra rend and damage when the unit charges. And then we've got a Slaughter Queen on Cauldron of Blood with Blessing of Khaine. This allows us to re-roll our Fanatical Faith rolls on a unit. Really good when combined with that 5-up save that's coming out of Devoted Disciples from our general. And then we've got a Hag Queen with Catechism of Murder for some extra damage potential there. And then we've got Crimson Rejuvenation on our Hag Queen on foot. She's going to give us access to a little bit of healing within the army. Battleline wise, we are pretty light due to being Melusai, so we've got 10 Blood Sisters and 2 units of 5 Bloodstalkers. The Blood Sisters are really going to be our big hammer along with our Slaughter Queen and Hag Queen on Cauldrons and our Bloodrack Shrines. And then the 2 Bloodstalker units are going to be some good fire support there with their mortal wound output. Behemoth's 2 Avatars of Khaine are going to be really fun. We're in Hagnar, so we count the table of Blood Rights as 1 turn earlier than what it is, meaning from turn 2 onwards. So while you might not necessarily get to activate them turn 1, you can definitely have them going and moving about in turn 2. So with some smart setup, you can definitely get a lot out of this unit. For a battalion, we've not gone for any because we really can't fit into any of the main core battalions, and none of them are really going to give us all too much. So we've gone for Hunters of the Heartlands, putting this on all 3 of our Melusai units, meaning they can't be affected by monstrous rampages. We do come to 1930, you could definitely throw in an endless spell here if you want to pick up another box. And we've got 1 reinforced unit, no allies, 115 wounds, and we are a 10-drop army. Now, how you would deploy this army, I think, on the table is you can let your Bloodrat Shrines generally bear the brunt, because they're going to have that good mortal wound output if something charges them. Of course, if your opponent's got a unit that is not, I guess, as dense model-wise, probably maybe stick your Blood Sisters in front of that general and just let them soak up the damage. Avatars of Khaine being positioned really well early on is going to be incredibly important. This is definitely not the most competitive Daughters of Khaine list, but I do think it would play okay in a nice little friendly setting. It's a fun army built entirely with Star Collecting boxes, so it's going to be a great way for anyone new getting into the game to have an army up on the table nice and quick at a relatively cheap cost. What do you think? What would you do with Star Collecting boxes for Daughters of Khaine? How would you build up the list? Let us know in the comments below. Well, that's the end of the video. We hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And also, drop us a comment in the video and let us know what you enjoyed about it as well. If you'd like to come chat more with me and other members of our fine community here at Sinful Gaming, you can do so by following the link in the description of the video to our Discord server. You can come chat with me and other members. Lastly, if you'd like to help support the channel in another way, you can do so either by joining Patreon or YouTube members linked in the video's description, or by getting some merch from Teespring, also linked in the video's description. We'd like to give a shout out to everyone who helps support the channel on Patreon and YouTube members, so a special shout out to our Patreons: Christian Weir, James Soren, Chaos Spawn, AJC, Kenny Lyle, Alderon Shot First, Andrew Bowen, Nathan Fee, The Rising Ape, Cure Dynamic, Agu, Anthony B, Adina226, Anton Nielsen, JJ Austrian, and Average Wargamer. And a shout out to our YouTube members as well: Green Roots Gaming, Kenton Young, Steve T, The Real Zeot, Chris Wallace, Turai12, Vinny, Lock Lorick, The Johnny84, David Ellsworth, Revenar, and Wolfric Nick. Lastly, a special thanks to Lady Witchfox Art, who does the amazing artwork you see on the channel. Everything here is done by her. She does an amazing job, so thank you very much. And lastly, a special shout out to Xmorphic, who does all the background work on the Discord server, keeps it running smoothly, and makes it amazing because I am terrible with computers. So thank you, Xmorphic, as well. That's it for today, though, folks. Stay safe, everyone. Stay well, and most of all, keep fighting that war against the Grey. Ciao for now.